Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Creative Katie, Karen Burchill. Today we have 2 art journal pages as part of the Index Card a Day 2023 challenge. This challenge is put on by Daisy Yellow. You can check out her site for the prompts. I am looking at week 2 and one of the prompts is butterfly. So I grabbed this napkin that I got from Ninny's Napkins. I believe it's called Petal. And I am going to use it as the base. Now I am using card bases that I have used in a signature in a DIY journal that I made from a cereal box. I'll link that video. But before we do, please help me grow my channel by hitting that subscribe button, clicking on the bell, and selecting the option of being notified of upcoming videos. Let's get back to it. So on here I had a napkin that I had broken the page with, and I have grabbed these numbers. Now this is something that I just made with the fonts on my computer. I blew them up. You can make them any size. They're just random numbers and they make excellent collage papers. These are fonts that either came with my Word program or that I had downloaded and installed from defont.com. So I've just ripped those up and then I'm just gluing them on with my fluid matte medium. Now you do see a napkin underneath there. It wasn't one that I particularly liked, and you're not going to see that on this page at all, but it does add some wonderful texture to my project. Here I'm just taking white gesso, I'm blurring the edges of where I've collaged paper down, and I'm just knocking back that napkin a little bit more. A lot of times those initial layers, you make choices to not use them. So I'm drawing that off and I've put this into a sleeve, and I am going to give this some subtle texture, and I'm going to use thickened gesso. Now this was regular gesso that has this propensity to thicken over time, which I love, but you can buy thick gesso. And here I'm just pushing it through the stencil with my finger. This gives a very thin layer of texture, but warning, it's not exactly precise. But it's going to give me texture and pattern, and it dries fairly quickly. So I'm just putting this on, and I'm putting it in 3 different places, different sections of the stencil. Word of warning, when you put gesso on a stencil, just like modeling paste, you want to either throw that in a tub of water or take time to wash it off. Look at that lovely texture and pattern. Now I gave that a good dry. You can add the heat tool before I'm starting to colorize it. And to colorize, I'm using my Inktense blocks. That's what you see on the left-hand corner. I just scribble it on and I activate it with a little bit of water on my fingertip. Now Inktense blocks activate with water like watercolor, but unlike watercolor, they are permanent. Once they're activated, they do not reactivate. And that's why I love them. I've had these for 7 years. They're broken, they're in bits, they still work, and I love them. They give a very matte finish and they blend really well. And they're great for putting on a quick background like you see me doing here. If I want to make more of a green color, I can mix the yellow and the blue, but I'm trying to keep it fairly separate. I want the blue and the yellow. And you can see the collage papers, we got little bits peeking through what's there. So every layer does show in the end, and it's just peeking through little bits. I'm giving this a good dry, and then I'm moving on to my focal image. Now here's the butterfly that I cut out of the napkin, and that just allows me to position it, audition it in different places, and see exactly where I want to put it. Now I realize that I'm going to have to glue this onto copy paper or some kind of paper so that the dark background doesn't show through and distort the image. So I'm just cutting a separate one. It doesn't have to be cut out at this point in time. Remove those two plies and grab a piece of scrap copy paper. There's something on the other side. I just always grab from the recycle bin and use everything. It doesn't matter what's on the back side. So I'm using some fluid matte medium underneath and on top. And I'm sealing it with the fluid matte medium on top. And there, you might notice that I kind of ripped the napkin because I wasn't being overly careful. Don't worry, we're going to colorize it later and I'll show you how to fix that. But you can avoid it by being more careful than I was. Now I'm taking some black acrylic paint on a Ranger blending foam and I'm rubbing it on top of the thick gesso that I put down through the stencil. This is allowing some of that pattern to come through so I see it, some of this texture. It's bringing out the texture. It's also grunging up the background. Then I'm taking that same blending foam and I'm edging my page. This really frames it, makes everything come together. You could do the same thing with a makeup sponge. Putting it back in the sleeve, that keeps everything neat and tidy. I'm just adding a little bit more, bringing out that texture. Hands up if you like the background. I do. So the butterfly is going to fit in. So I grabbed the sentiment pack, my winged wonders. So if you like angels, butterflies, things with wings, fairies, this sentiment pack is full of quotes that go along with that. And I am positioning my butterfly there and trying to pick a sentiment. Now I've got sentiments that are printed out the full size the way I give them, but you can shrink them or blow them up to any size, and that's the joy with the digital sentiments. You can make it fit whatever substrate you're working on. So I have a couple selections there, and now I'm gluing down the butterfly, and I'm using gel medium here because it's copy paper and napkin, a little thicker, and I find the gel works just better. But you can use Mod Podge, you can use the fluid matte medium. I also want to make sure that that butterfly is a non-porous surface. So I've identified two possible sentiments, and I'm going to play with it a little bit to cut them apart and see which one works better. That believe in your wings is a little too boxy. I don't like all that white, so I'm trying to cut off some of it. Does that make it better? Usually I delete this. I don't put it part of the video, but I wanted to showcase a little bit how I use the sentiments. I like the bold one of the spread your wings, and I did cut it apart, and I'm going to layer it up. So even though it's in a straight line, and I might use it that way on a different page, for this I'm going to layer it up because it fits the overall composition. And you can personalize or tweak how the sentiment is. You can even take words from one sentiment to another and make your own out of those words. Having these printed out saves me time, especially when I'm doing this challenge, this index card a day challenge. I don't want to overthink this. Now the butterfly, I really didn't like the color of the butterfly to begin with, and so my intention was to always colorize this. And I've chosen to keep with the same color scheme, the yellows and the blues that are in there. And I'm using my distress crayons. I've recently discovered them. They were on my use it or lose it pile. I have fallen in love with them again, and especially in this application where you have a non-porous surface. Remember, there's a good coat of gel medium on there, or gesso, You could have gesso, and then you are just going to scribble them on and rub with a finger. If you want it to go a little smoother, just slightly dampen your fingers. But I'm just going to add the yellow and blue to make this butterfly a little more colorful, a little more present on the page. After all, it's the focal point. If you put something where you don't like it, you can take a baby wipe and wipe it off because it is activated, but it doesn't activate as much as watercolor or some other of our color mediums. You really have to rub on it, and here I'm using it as a final layer. I know I'm not going to be putting a lot of wet stuff after this, so there's no chance in me reactivating it. I want that butterfly to pop out a little bit more, so I'm taking my angle brush and black acrylic paint and I'm shading around it. And I'm being careful not to touch where the distress crayon has been, just in case I reactivate it. If you do, you can always go in, grab that crayon again and touch it up. No worries. I have a Facebook group called Art Journaling and Mixed Media Creations. I'd love to see you join. Just adding some of the lines back in, and in a minute you're also going to see me grab my charcoal pencil, my General's charcoal, and add some sketchy lines. But before you use that, you really need to make sure that your focal image is perfectly dry, otherwise you're liable to rip the paper. It's not really going on a whole lot here, so I do dry it and then I come back and add more lines. Decided I wanted a little more in the background, so I grabbed my Stampendous dot stamp. Oh, I've gotten so much use out of this basic art journaling supply, and just adding a little bit more detail. It ain't over till it's over. And there we have it. One finished card. Oh, no, we need some bling. And that yellow, the gold, goes really well with the colors that are in this art journal page, this iCAD. Or my version of iCAD. I guess technically it's not. So I'm grabbing my DIY journal and adding that to the signature. I love working with these card bases in this signature because you can take it out and work flat, which always makes it easier. So that one done, let's do another page. And I'm going to grab a blank card base. These are great for this because you got 4 pages on there. So you really get your value and it's super easy. But if you don't have card bases, you can cut your mixed media paper. So for this one, I am using the next prompt, which is magenta or fuchsia. And as I was flipping through my napkins, I found this magenta fuchsia colored large scale flower. And as you can see, I've cut it around, and that allows me to play with it on the page, turn it upside down, and turn it into something not a flower. I'm going to turn this flower into a dress and pair her with a Julie Nutting doll. Now I have many of these Julie Nutting dolls, and I've got them pre-stamped and somewhat cut out in my stash. So when I want to use them on the page, that part's ready. And that's a tip for shortening your creative time, especially when you know you're going to use them. To make it easier to get everything to work together, I'm cutting the legs off. I'm also have to do that because to make that girl fit this card. The card is a little smaller, so I'm just tweaking, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm tweaking the legs, I'm tweaking the body. I've cut out the arms so the arms can come on top of the napkin. There, I'm cutting off some more of that. And there, now I've dressed my Julie Nutting doll. If I find the name of this one, I will do it, because this stamp, this Julie Nutting doll, works really well when you are using magazine pictures or napkins or other focal images to make a dress, because doesn't really have a dress on, or it's a very, maybe an underdress. So I'm going to glue the legs down, and then I'm going to tuck the napkin under her arms, which I've cut out. And I apologize, some of the footage here, especially colorizing the dress, got lost. So I've glued the legs on, I've glued the body, the head on, and then I'm tucking the napkin in under her arms, and then I glued it down underneath and over top with the fluid matte medium. Just break it down into steps, go slow, and then dry it off perfectly. Now I notice that there's some parts here of the napkin that I really didn't want, so I'm just kind of using my finger and scraping it off. There's a piece under her arm that isn't really part of her dress. I could have left it and no one would have been the wiser, but here I go, Miss Perfection. I'm just scraping it off. Now, if you can't scrape it off, if it's already dried, you could just take gesso and white it out, and again, no one would be the wiser. So there's always a workaround. Don't panic if you've got to go and fix something. And here I'm just adding a little bit of gesso, and there we go. I didn't like the way the legs were showing, so I'm just taking some white gesso and knocking back the black lines a little bit. I add gesso, and then I do grab my Inktense blocks again to colorize. That didn't work. The color wasn't exactly the same as the napkin, so I grabbed my quinacridone magenta acrylic paint, thinned it out, and painted it. And here is the result. You can see I've deepened and brightened the color. But quite honestly, you could have left it as it was. It was perfectly beautiful, but I like to overpaint. And then turn it into something that's unique to me. For the background, I have taken some unbleached titanium, and I am just using my angle brush, and I'm painting the background. I didn't paint the background first because I wanted to glue the girl down with the dress, and that was tricky enough trying to get that all to work without having to worry that the background was going to colorize anything. So you can do it either way. There is no right or wrong. You just find what works best for you and just know you have options. So I put that, and I mix a little bit of white gesso in there. Now I'm taking that unbleached titanium, adding a bit of the quinacridone magenta, a little bit of yellow to make a flesh tone. And then I'm painting the flesh tone on the Julie Nutting doll. The napkins that you see me use in these two projects, as well as some Julie Nutting stamps and other stamps and stencils, can all be purchased at NINNYSNAPKINS.com. There is an affiliate link in the description box along with a coupon code. So go and check out all the wonderful stuff that's there. I painted her hair yellow oxide. I think I might have done it a dark brown. I think that would have popped a little bit more because my background is in that tone. But I thought it goes with that center of the flower, which I'm turning into, it looks like she's holding a bouquet there. I grabbed this Petal Splash stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm taking some of the yellow oxide with the unbleached titanium and stenciling through. This is giving a very tone-on-tone stenciling. I love that. It's not in your face, but it's not blank. It adds a lot of interest to your background. And I'm loving that flower motif in the background. Goes really well with the bright colors, the yellow, the magenta. Really pop. I'm really liking it. So I did some shading here with my angle brush, and then I'm continuing doing the shading to edge my page. I know my sentiment will be black, so that's going to tie all in. And then I'm shading outside the girl's dress as well as on the girl. I decided I needed something more, so I grabbed my script stamp and I put black acrylic paint on and I stamped, and instantly right now I'm regretting it. I gotta be honest. I'm regretting it. It was a little too dark, a little too present. I thought, okay, maybe that was the wrong choice, but I'm moving ahead. I mean, don't sweat it. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. So I'm drawing that off with the heat tool, and I go to my Grateful, Thankful, Blessed sentiment pack, and I have two here. This Gratitude is short for Great Attitude, and Choose Joy. So that one will work. I didn't like so much white, so I decided to start cutting it apart. And then because of the black in the background, I'm finding that the sentiment is kind of disappearing. There's not enough presence in the sentiment. Here, it's competing with that script stamp from the background, and you really don't see it. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to go with this Choose Joy. It's a little larger scale. It may have more presence on the background. So I'll save that other one. It'll show up on another iCAD, I'm sure. I like this one better because it is larger. The joy part is bold. I'm going to bubble cut this one, leaving a white around the letter to frame it, but getting rid of a lot of that white. If I was doing this on a canvas, I would take the time to print the sentiment out onto tissue paper, and then you totally get rid of that white because it goes translucent. I'm really liking this. It shows up so much better on the dress. And up here, even though it's bigger and bolder, it's still competing with that script, that black script that I put in the back. So I think, oh, I'm going to grab some of this unbleached titanium, and I'm just going to, with some gesso, and just knock back that script. It's bothering me. I don't like it. I don't have to keep it. So I'm going to give that a wash and knock that back. Now the problem with that is when I knock that back, I'm also not knocking back the floral that I loved. So I decide I'm going to knock it back, and then I'm going to take that floral stencil, Petal Splash, and use just yellow oxide and stencil on top. This is further knocking back that black, so it's there but it's not forward, and adding that golden color that goes so well with the dress. So the journey was a little longer, we took a detour, but I think we ended up in a better place because of it. So turn those roadblocks into stepping stones. If you're trying to follow my steps, do the script stamp first, then do the stenciling. Save yourself the extra step. And be prepared to troubleshoot and tweak. You're always going to have to do it. And the more you create, the more tools you put in your toolbox, the more you have ways of solving whatever problems come up. Loving that sentiment on her dress. It shows up so well. And the Choose Joy sentiment looks so well with these bright, vibrant colors, the fuchsia and the yellow. Winning color combination. Could have splattered this with gold as well. And once it's dry, in it goes to the completed pile. And because they're loose signatures, I can play with them and have ones that work together when there's an open page. Close-ups of the finished project are following. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, ask me a question. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and join my Facebook group. Until next time, go get creative.